This man in India worships Donald Trump like he's a god. He prays to him every day and even has a shrine in his honor.
Donald Trump, if you can hear us, please, Donald Trump, please save me. Please save me, Donald Trump, please. I'm asking you. Please save me. Please save me. Please get these people away from me. In dear God's name, please stop these people. They're breaking.
Hello, my friends. I'm Nathan Leal. The website is watchmanscry.com. Now, today, we're going to talk about the title of this program. You've seen it. Reptilian Trump, Scorpion King. If he gets into office, this is what's coming, folks. We will be in a dictatorship. The United States of America will crumble and turn into a monster. Babylon will rise, and Trump will show his real colors. He will be the little horn in the role of Nebuchadnezzar, to set fire to the world. When we first saw Donald Trump show up, when he got inaugurated, he projected what he was going to do and the type of leader that he was going to be. During the first term, he projected that he was going to be a militant type of leader. From the very beginning of his presidency in 2016, he talked a lot about throwing people into prison, incarcerating his enemies and those who were disloyal to him. At his rallies, he would talk about beating up his critics. And he claimed that it was just hyperbole. But in his rhetoric, he was planting seeds. He was educating his followers and his supporters about the opposition. You folks remember that? You remember how he would label anybody who was against him or who he didn't like? He would label them with names. And the reason he did that is because it was a way to dehumanize the opposition. Because if you dehumanize them and you call them names, then that means that they're the bad guys. And Trump has capitalized on that. He has energized and nourished this way of thinking in his supporters. And who are the bad guys? It was always a general term. You remember that, folks? The deep state this, the deep state that. Or they were swamp creatures, and he was going to drain them.
Drain the swamp. Look at that sign. Drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. Look at that. You know, I said to somebody the other day, and even today, drain the swamp. We put it in about 2 days ago. I said, drain the swamp. I didn't like it. I didn't like the expression, drain the swamp in Washington. So I said it 3 days ago. The place went crazy. I said, you know what? I'm starting to like that expression. And now it's it's like trending all over the world. Drain the swamp in Washington. So we like that expression.
As his presidency progressed, he started telling us who they were. The FBI and the Justice Department and prosecutors and investigators who would look into his wrongdoing and his ethics violations and his crimes and his lies and all the things that make Donald Trump who he is. He is the Scorpion King, and he is a rising dictator. Now, back to what I was saying. Trump laid the foundation of who the bad guys and the enemies were. It was the FBI, the Justice Department, and anyone who disagreed with him. Fast forward to the present. Now, he's letting us know that Donnie 1.0 was the beginning phase and it was just words, but Donnie 2.0 is where the hatchet comes down and the axe comes down and he starts chopping off all the parts of government that would resist him. So the strategy that Donald Trump is going to use is to dismantle the United States government, the federal government. Well, what's wrong with that, Nathan? It's overreaching. It's bloated. The budget is too big. Yes, that's right. There's a lot of pork in the budget of the government, But the areas that he wants to shave are not about budgetary savings. He wants to shave off the departments that will stop him from being a dictator. That's the bottom line, folks. Trump 2.0 is going to dismantle the FBI if he gets in office. He's going to dismantle the Justice Department, the FBI, and also high-ranking officers in the military. He's going to get rid of any generals who will not obey him, colonels and others who won't make Trump their mafioso. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a real and present danger occurring right now. Before he left office at the end of his presidency, he signed an executive order called Schedule F. Have you folks heard of that? And Schedule F allowed him to disembowel the government. With the swipe of his hand and a signature of his devil-horned autograph, it allows him to force tens and potentially hundreds of thousands of career officials to become political appointees. Instead of them having a job and tenure and job security and all of those benefits that most Americans like to have when they have a job, it allows him to switch them from civil employees to political appointees. Overnight, all of them become appointees of the president, which means when you're an appointee, the president can fire you on the spot. The job protections would be gone. In essence, it would allow Donald Trump to fire civil workers who fail the test to kiss his ring. Trump signed this executive order at the very end of his presidency, and then he left, and Biden came in and nullified it. But Trump has been letting us know that when he comes back, he's going to re-energize it, he's going to bring it back, and he's going to start chopping away at the departments of the government that would stop him from being a dictator. Folks, this is the same thing that Hitler did. And how interesting is it that he wants to get rid of the offices that have to do with judicial proceedings, meaning law and order? The Justice Department is the branch that has the teeth to enforce the rules that prevent us from being a banana republic or an anarchy. Without the Justice Department, we're a dictatorship because there is no one to challenge misbehavior. Folks, Trump does not serve America. He's not a public servant. And when he did the Waco rally just a few days ago, he made a comment. I don't know if it was a slip of the tongue or him letting us know who he really is and how he thinks of the position of president. Listen to what he says right here.
The whole place was laughing. They're laughing in our country. We don't want anyone to laugh. Nobody laughed at our country when I ran it, I can tell you that.
When I ran the country the first time, so he boasts that he was Tony Soprano over America. How many folks out there are bothered by this rhetoric? A few days ago when he posted his social media message from Truth Social, it was an image of him holding a baseball bat and Alvin Bragg's was the other photo. He also released another tweet or a truther, or whatever you call these things when they come from his Truth Social. He said right here, death and destruction is going to come if he gets indicted. This is his message. If I get indicted for doing illegal things, for committing crimes, then I'm going to send my little goons out there and we're going to burn down the city and people are going to die and there's going to be destruction. Folks, when in your lifetime do you ever remember any president talking like this? In America, at least. When have we ever seen this? We haven't. So we are in uncharted territory and Trump is stoking the fires and somebody is going to get killed with this insane rhetoric. This is happening in real time, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. So on this program, we're going to talk about it because great darkness has arrived, and there's a lot of bills that are waiting to be passed, like the TikTok bill, the restriction bill, or it's also known as Senate Bill 686 to restrict TikTok. But if we read the fine print of that bill, it's not just about TikTok. It will strip the freedom of speech and the freedom to get online, the freedom to go on the internet, the freedom to privacy from every American out there. Every one of us. The TikTok bill is a bill to allow them to listen in on your phone. It allows them to tap into the routers of any house, a private house, and listen to the phone. It removes all the barriers of the Constitution. I don't understand. I really, really don't understand how more people aren't talking about this. This is, at the moment, Satan's world. And when Jesus returns, he's going to take it back. But until then, Satan is going to be allowed to wreak havoc on the inhabitants of earth. And folks, it's not going to be only the Democrats that are doing this. The architects of the dictatorial laws in waiting are being written by the Republicans, by the conservatives, by the quote-unquote supposed evangelicals, by the people that your preacher voted for. And who would have thought that America was going to fall from the inside? But this is the great betrayal, and it's occurring right now. The spirit of the Judas goat is hovering over the earth. It is killing the souls and the discernment and the spiritual eyesight of so many people. There's a huge spiritual operation right now in America to turn us into a dictatorship. And folks, the number one candidate to make this happen right now is Donald Trump. Look at these pictures. These messages are not the messages of a Christian or of a nobleman or of someone who has any business being a public servant or being in office, and in no way to be the president, because Trump is a malignant psychopath, narcissist, and when he comes back, should he succeed, he's going to want blood, folks. He's going to want revenge, and he's going to bring a scorched earth policy to burn down the government, to burn down America, to bring civil war. And if those incubating satanic eggs that are in the MAGA movement hatch, then MAGA will become the new Nazi party of America that is going to spread through the whole world.
In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution. Not going to let this happen.
Why would I do this? Why in the world would I say such a thing that Donald Trump is the Scorpion King? Well, it's because the antics of Donald Trump right now are back on the headlines, and he's affecting a lot of people. And all of his supporters in the NAR crowd, the Kingdom Now, Seven Mountain crowd, are now coming out of their hibernation, and they are spewing the same garbage, the same lies, and the same nonsense of delusion and deception from Satan to God's people. The showman, the carnival, the graduates of P.T. Barnum's class of deception are doing their job to dismiss the Bible, to step on righteousness, and take more prisoners for the enemy. And if Trump is successful in what he is trying to do, he is proving himself to be the Scorpion King. He has proven himself to be a child of the serpent, a reptilian of the spirit world. And when I say reptilian, I'm not talking about DNA manipulation, although that might be something that we don't even know about. But when I say reptilian Trump, I'm talking about the spirit of Satan and the spirit of the serpent, the adder that resides within him. Up front, ladies and gentlemen, I am not a Biden supporter. I'm not a Democrat. I do not follow the liberal progressive thinking. I never have. And for those of you that would type in the comments, Nathan, how come I never hear you talk about Biden? Well, in the last program, there were a few people who typed that, which was interesting because I actually did talk about Biden, and I said the same thing I'm saying now, but they still typed in the comments, you never talk about Biden, you're a progressive. So let's talk about Biden. And let me answer the question of why I do not find it necessary to talk about Biden. Now, first of all, this program is not a political program, ladies and gentlemen. It is a spiritual, biblical program. I have an end-time worldview according to what we read in the Bible, according to the gospel of Jesus and what he has given us in his word, the prophecies that we find in the Old Testament as well as the New. So I'm an end-time Christian, a pastor, and according to the Bible, we need to be watching and making sure that we are not falling for deception. Key word, ladies and gentlemen, deception. So when I see someone who is causing deception, I do a show about it and talk about it and shine the light and tell the people, danger. I did that during the Lakeland revival in 2008. I did it way back then. I have done it about Obama here and there, and I did it about Donald Trump, about deception. That's the key word. Not only deception, but deception that looks like the truth. Deception that looks like facts. Deception that looks like reality. That's the type of deception that really gets a hold of people and throws them off. Now, when it comes to Joe Biden, how many of you out there are really, really tempted by the antics of Joe Biden? How many of you find yourself wanting to imitate him? And for those of you men out there who are saying, how come you don't talk about Biden? Well, what is it about Joe Biden that is causing deception in the church? And what antics is Joe Biden doing that's making people want to imitate him, that's throwing them off? And therefore, I have to warn the Christians out there not to behave like Joe Biden. Please inform me of the activities of Joe Biden right now that Christians are wanting to imitate and are making excuses for. Please tell me. What are they? Because the only ones I can think of are his progressive stuff, and most Christians aren't going to just come out and follow that. So that one's a no-show. But then we do have the video clips through the years of Joe Biden cozying up to young girls. He smells their hair when he has a photo opportunity with them. He gets close to them and hugs them. And so here's a question that I have for you, my friend. Is that something that I need to talk about and say that Christians should not be doing? Do I need to say from this microphone, ladies and gentlemen, it is not proper behavior to go up to little girls who are young and smell their hair if you're a man? So is that a problem that some of the folks out there have that are listeners? To those of you that would type that in my comment section, Nathan, why don't you talk about Biden? So let me ask you, do I need to talk about Biden doing these things because you struggle with it? You probably shouldn't be smelling little girls' hair like Joe Biden does. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what else is there? Well, Joe Biden is senile. He forgets his words. He forgets his lines. So for those of you who might be doing that, if you're doing it like him, welcome to getting old, because that's his ailment. He's old. He's forgetful. And those of us who are older, we know that. So to make fun of that and use it as a political tool to rip apart the Democrats and Biden, and, you know, folks, we're all going to get old. And it's pretty sad that there are Republicans out there that are making fun of Biden for forgetting things. Because what purpose does it serve? Everybody gets old, and every one of us are going to lose our memory at some point. It will start going away, and then we'll die. You will die someday, my friend. If Jesus doesn't come, you will die. If you make it to old age, you're going to get old, and there's a chance you're going to become forgetful, just like Biden. And when that happens, how many of you want other Christians who claim to love Jesus and go to church and say grace over their food, how many of you want them making fun of you for acting old? So that's just dumb, ladies and gentlemen. The behavior of the Republicans right now is so embarrassing. And why is it happening? It's because the Scorpion King recruited them. So when it comes to Joe Biden, if Joe Biden asks you to storm the Capitol, you need to resist that temptation. All right, my friend? Is there anything else? Well, yeah, Nathan, the laptop. There's a bunch of corruption. Tell us about the laptop. Okay, let's sum it up this way, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Biden allegedly made some deals with his son and benefited from it. And if this is all true, it was bad, it's evil, and it goes against principles. Because taking advantage of the political office for financial gain is a bad thing. However, right now, guess what's happening, folks? We have these committee meetings going on in Congress against the CEO of TikTok. And if you saw the footage of that interrogation, or tribunal is what it really looked like, the questions they were asking were silly, they were stupid, and they revealed that these politicians don't know what they're talking about and that they're bought and paid for, because it has also come to the light that Mark Zuckerberg has invested tens of millions of dollars into lobbying groups to get Congress to delete TikTok from your phone. Zuckerberg is behind it, and Meta is behind it, and also Alphabet Incorporated, or Google, is behind it. And out of the 52 Congress people who were grilling the CEO of TikTok, out of 52 of them, the majority of them have stock shares in Google, in Instagram, in Facebook, in Meta, and other high-tech companies. Did you know that, folks? That's why they want to get rid of TikTok, so that people will then flood Instagram and Facebook. However, it's backfiring because Generation X is very angry about this, and they're the largest demographic in social media. And the Republicans who are doing this, if any Democrats or Republicans get rid of TikTok, here are the numbers. 150 million Americans use TikTok. That's almost half of America uses TikTok. 5 million Americans have businesses on TikTok. A lot of people have their incomes on TikTok. There's people who have ministries on TikTok. Half the country is not going to be happy with this, and if it does happen, they're cutting their own throat. The Democrats, as well as the Republicans who are behind this, are going to get booted out in the upcoming elections. But it's because they're bought and paid for. They've done insider trading. They've bought a lot of stocks several months ago getting ready for this. And these Congress people have committed open insider trading, which is against Securities and Exchange ethics. But that's where we are, folks. We're in the age of corruption. So in answer to the question of why I do not talk about Biden, there it is. Now, back to this image right here. Donald Trump, the Scorpion King. Why did I say it? Here's why, folks. because something is going on right now in the United States of America, and it is going on in the spiritual realm, and it is going on in the timeline of prophecy. On these programs, we talk about Bible prophecy a lot. We talk about the book of Revelation. We look at the end time prophecies about the day of the Lord, his vengeance. We have looked into the rapture, the abomination of desolation, the Antichrist, the little horn, the players, the beast, the spiritual entities and principalities who will fuel the beast, and the religious beast, the false prophet, second beast. We've talked about a lot of those things. And over the last several decades, I have been searching and seeking God and asking him, what do we need to look for? Because I've always maintained, and I've said this openly, that the way that the end times is going to play out is not what we were told by Hal Lindsey and John Hagee and all those prophecy books. Yes, Jesus is coming. Yes, we're in the last days. Yes, Revelation is unfolding. The horsemen are riding. And we are at the beginning, opening credits of the tribulation. Not the great tribulation yet, folks. We're not there for the mark of the beast, but we are in the opening credits. So I have been seeking God to find out what we need to look for. And the biggest thing is deception. And throughout the New Testament, Paul tells us it's going to be deception, delusion. So it's about a spirit that is going to try to deceive people. Before the fireworks start, deception is the first rule. That means betrayal is also involved, because deception is a betrayal of trust. And when we look at what happened to Jesus, you folks remember the Last Supper? He had a lot of final words. A lot of the final words are recorded in the last chapters of the book of John. It's beautiful, his prayer and his promises and the comfort that he gave the disciples, but also for us. And he prayed for them, but also for us. And during that beautiful moment, when he was saying his goodbye, there was also a dark moment where Judas got activated. Judas Iscariot. Jesus said, one of you will betray me. Peter asked, is it I, Lord? And Jesus said, whoever I dip this bread. And so he did it, and he gave it to Judas. And then he said to Judas, what you do, do quickly. That's found in the book of John, chapter 13. And from that moment, John 13:27 tells us, at that moment, Satan entered into Judas. And then Jesus said, what you do, do quickly. So Satan went into Judas to betray him. But it didn't just start there, because we can see a few verses earlier in verse 2 of John 13:2, it says Satan was already influencing his heart. John 13:2, and supper being ended, the devil having already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. So Satan put it in his heart. It was birthed by Satan. The deception started with him, and then he entertained it, and then he did it. He left and went and did it. Now, when we think about Judas, most of us think that Judas is like the villain who wore a mask, and he was the bad guy, and he appeared bad, and always evil and dark and conniving. But according to what we read in the Gospels before the great betrayal, Judas was just one of the others. He hung out with them. They laughed together. They ate with him. They got along with him. They allowed him to be the treasurer. He held the money. And when Jesus sent them out 2 by 2, which is told to us in Matthew 10, it says that Judas also was among them. That's in Matthew 10, verse 4. Judas was among them, going out 2 by 2, and they came back and said, Lord, even the demons are obeying us. We healed the sick and did miracles and all this stuff. So Judas also participated in miracles. He wasn't just the villain always walking around looking like the bad guy. He looked like one of them. He looked like he belonged amongst them. So when he betrayed Jesus, the others were very, very surprised. Now, fast forward to our time. If Jesus got betrayed and the Christians around Jesus didn't even know who the betrayer was, and they trusted the betrayer, but they also had a front row seat to the teachings of Jesus, but they still believed Judas, and they were caught off guard by Judas, what does that say for us? For those of us who don't have front row seats to the words of Jesus, and we can't talk to him personally, one-on-one in the physical realm, and touch him and hold his hand and lean our head on his breast like Peter did in the Last Supper, since we don't have that privilege, how much more so can the church be deceived even more than they were? And Jesus says that. He says in Matthew 24, that would be one of the things that was happening. People will betray one another. Family members will betray one another. So if family members will betray one another, then how much more will a non-family member? How much more will someone that doesn't even know you? How much more will a politician or a rich man or somebody who behaves like Donald Trump. Of course he will, folks, and he's doing it right now. So, back to the Scorpion King. I challenge everyone that is listening to this program to please listen to this program in its entirety, because I'm going to share some things. I'm going to give some information that you need to know. The people of God need to know. And if you happen to be a Trump follower or a MAGA follower or a QAnon follower, I challenge you to listen to this program in its entirety, because I'm going to give information to prove that Donald Trump is making a laughingstock out of all of you who are loyal supporters. He's making a joke out of you. It's sad that I have to say this. I don't want to have to say this, but that's what Trump is doing right now. Truth Social has been funded by Russian oligarchs and money laundering funds, and it has also been funded by the porn industry. Yes, that's right, folks. Truth Social, the app that Christian MAGA followers, they don't know this, and if you happen to have a Truth Social account, you should know this. They have been funded by a bank that serves the pornography industry. This is the real truth. Donald Trump is a vessel and a cauldron that invents lies and spits out lies. It's like a foam, a dark foam that comes out of his mouth. He's a cauldron of lies. But sadly, a lot of people don't see it. A lot of MAGA people don't realize it when he's lying, and they don't seem to be bothered with the things that he is saying. They don't seem to be bothered that Donald Trump is now calling for assault, attacks, for physical attacks, even assassination of some of the district attorneys, judges, and lawyers and investigative prosecutors who are working on behalf of the state of New York or some of the jurisdictions that deal with ethics violations. Donald Trump placed this on his Truth Social. And look what it says here, folks. Look at this picture right here. Trump put that out. And the person on the right is District Attorney Alvin Bragg. But on the left, Donald Trump is showing himself holding a baseball bat. And then he also tweeted this. Everybody knows I'm 100% innocent. Well, no, not everybody does know that. You're not innocent, Trump. You're guilty. But he says, everybody knows I'm 100% innocent, including Bragg, the DA. But he doesn't care. He is just carrying out the plans of the radical left lunatics. Our country is being destroyed as they tell us to be peaceful. Folks, he's doing it again. He is inciting violence. He is inciting destruction and riots and mayhem. As they tell us to be peaceful, hint, hint, wink, wink, everybody. We don't need to be peaceful now. Here's your excuse to go burn down the city. So according to this post right here, let's look at what Trump said right here, because this is stupid, ladies and gentlemen. This is how dumb Trump is. He claims innocence when we know he's not innocent. And he says everybody knows. No, not everybody knows it. So those are two lies. You're not innocent, and not everybody believes that you are. So that's two lies. And then he says Bragg knows he's innocent. No, Bragg knows you're guilty, Trump, because they have the evidence. They have the paper trail. They have the sworn testimony. And Michael Cohen went to prison for the very thing that you're saying you're innocent of. But then he says they're doing this because they're left-wing lunatics. So because Donald Trump had an affair on his wife when she was pregnant and then paid her off before the election, Stormy Daniels, that's who I'm talking about, because he did that and then claimed that they were lawyer fees, which was a lie. So it wasn't just a bookkeeping error. It was outright fraud. And when it comes to ethics and political contributions, the rules are very strict because we have seen too much corruption. So they have made it that as long as the politician is honest and accountable, there won't be any problem. But when the politician becomes corrupt and deceptive and tries to hide dereliction of duty, then they're going to say something. And that doesn't mean that the country's being destroyed. So in a nutshell, here's what we have, folks. Donald Trump paid off Stormy Daniels. He used Michael Cohen to do it, $130,000. And then he reimbursed Michael Cohen. But that went against campaign finance laws and ethics. And because he got caught, he's trying to say that this is the destruction of America. When, nope, it's not. Let's move on. Why won't Bragg drop this case? Everybody says there's no crime here. No, they're not. I did nothing wrong. Folks, do you see it? It was all made up by a convicted nutjob with zero credibility who has been disputed by highly respected professionals at every turn. Actually, no, Michael Cohen has the paperwork. He has the receipts. So it's not made up. And by the way, regarding that it was all made up and he didn't do this, I'm going to show you something in a second, but let's finish reading. Bragg refuses to stop despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. He is a Soros-backed animal who just doesn't care about right and wrong, no matter how many people are hurt. Now he's calling Bragg an animal. He's dehumanizing Alvin Bragg, which is giving fuel to all the radical MAGA people out there to do harm against Bragg, because it's not so bad if he's an animal, right? But Donald Trump fails to include the information that he himself borrowed money from George Soros to finish one of his skyscrapers in Chicago. This was back in 2004 when Trump needed $160 million for a mezzanine loan to help him finish the project, and one of the investors was George Soros's hedge fund. You can look it up yourself. You can search it out. If you're a MAGA Trump supporter and you're saying, "Nuh-uh, Nathan," all you need to do is type it in. George Soros funded Donald Trump's Chicago project. Does that mean Donald Trump is also an animal as well? Does that mean that we can apply the same logic and rationale of identification politics to Donald Trump as well? You see, folks, the hypocrisy runs great with this guy. This is no legal system. This is the Gestapo. This is Russia and China, but worse, it's disgraceful. So again, Donald Trump caught, but he says, "I did nothing wrong. There's no crime here. It was all made up." So he's saying that he never did this. He didn't give the money. But look what we have here, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation.
Rudy Giuliani said Wednesday night that President Trump reimbursed his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, for a $130,000 payment Cohen made to keep adult film star Stormy Daniels quiet 11 days before the election.
Funneled through law firm, and the president repaid it.
Oh, I didn't know he did.
Yeah.
That contradicts what the president said on Air Force One last month.
Mr. President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth or allegation?
Well, you have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
When I heard Cohen's retainer of $35,000 when he was doing no work for the president, I said, "But that's how he's repaying. That's how he's repaying it."
Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, said Giuliani's remarks could possibly indicate bank fraud or money laundering.
Rudy Giuliani, based on what I've just seen, stated that there were bogus law firm bills. Well, guess what? That's fraud. That's illegal.
See, folks, when you're a liar, it's hard to keep up with the lies because every now and then you can forget. And oops. Now, in addition to Alvin Bragg, who works for the DA in New York, that case has to do with campaign funds. That is the lightest case out of all of them. But then there's another one that is more serious, and that is the classified documents case, where Donald Trump repeatedly denied that he had them, and then he had his lawyers sign documents that there were no more, and then later on, they discovered 100 more. It was malicious, it was premeditated, which then shows a motive of obstruction of justice. And this is a very, very serious crime. Plus, there were some classified envelopes that were empty. Well, what about Biden, Nathan? What about Pence, Nathan? Yes, they're being investigated as well. However, their behavior is way different. They're complying. They're cooperating. And this show is not about whataboutism. That is a lame excuse trying to misdirect. Whataboutism is a very, very weak method of reasoning and debate because it doesn't get to the truth. It doesn't address the facts. It doesn't address the item in question, the exhibit that is in front of all of us. When we stand before God, we will not be able to use, well, what about him? What about her? What about the preacher? What about my teacher? What about... God's not going to care about that. It's about us, our record, our accountability. So when we're talking about Trump, it's about him, not Pence or Biden. Let's stay on point here. And by the way, Mike Pence is not griping on social media saying that the investigators and those that are looking into the classified documents found that his location need to be destroyed or fired or evil or they're destroying the country or this shows that we're Russia and China and we're just Gestapo. Pence isn't saying that. Neither is Biden. But Trump is. And this image right here, ladies and gentlemen, is going to get somebody killed. And Donald Trump is the number one person responsible for this. Okay, Nathan, fine, but how is he the Scorpion King? In order to explain this, we're going to do a Bible study. So if you have your Bibles, please get them, and I'm going to read a passage of Scripture. Now, Paul told us in Thessalonians and in Timothy about the last days doctrine of demons, about the lies, about the tickling of the ears, about how the number one thing that would be happening at the end of time would be the battle and the clash of truth versus fiction, truth versus lies. That's what the battle would be. Because Paul says before the end starts, we would see the great falling away, and then the son of perdition would be revealed, and then there would be people who did not like the truth, who hate the truth, who fight against the truth, and then when that happens, God would then send them a strong delusion. So if we're in the last days, if we're in the end times and all the other signs are occurring around us, then it stands to reason that there is going to be a delusion around us. So what could that be, ladies and gentlemen? Is it a delusion that is caused by the words of Biden? I don't think so, because the church is not going to be tempted by that. But they will be tempted by someone claiming to be one of their own, just like Judas. So that means that when we hear anything, we have to vet it, we have to prove it, and find out if it's true. So when Donald Trump is talking, we need to find out if it's true or if it's not. So back to Thessalonians. God will send a strong delusion. What does that word mean, delusion? Come on, Nathan. Believing in Trump is that bad? Well, actually, the problem is revealed in that statement. Believing in Trump says a lot. Because in truth, you can't believe in both, folks. And when I say believe, I'm talking about to give allegiance. We cannot give allegiance to both God and the Scorpion King. Because to give allegiance to Trump requires turning off discernment, and there are folks out there, sadly, who have become lost in the poisonous red tide of Trump's disgraceful words and his violent rhetoric and his unrighteous, ridiculous behavior. Now, I know that some folks resist the possibility that Trump could be the little horn. That's fine. And I have stated he is officially my number one candidate, but if he turns out not to be, then we will look elsewhere. At minimum, he is being used as an instrument to bring a strong delusion. That's at minimum, folks. At the worst, if he's not just a delusion and he's actually the little horn, then he is going to be playing a role, and he's going to be used by Satan, just like when Satan entered Judas, Satan has entered Trump. The devil is inside Donald Trump, and the devil is going to use Donald Trump to bring a storm of lost souls. Because in a year from now, ladies and gentlemen, in 1 year from now, you're going to be able to look back and say, wow, Nathan talked about this. And I want it on record that this is my concern, because some things look like they're approaching and they involve Donald Trump. They involve chaos. They involve bloodshed and riots and a civil war. I don't want it to turn into that. So I want to say up front that I am calling out Donald Trump. Meanwhile, at the same time, your favorite Freedom Radio person, they're out there. Go look them up, folks. Look what they're talking about. Right now, they're defending Donald Trump. And they're defending Putin. So the delusion continues. Nathan, if all the watchmen are saying Trump is good, and the preachers are saying Trump is good, and you're the only one that's not saying Trump is good, and by the way, I'm not the only one saying it's not. There are others as well. But when it comes to the watchman universe of those that we know about, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. There is great delusion occurring right now. By the way, I said this 6 years ago, and I want to say it right now. Please make note of all the watchmen who are coming against the investigations. Make note who they are. I said this before, write down their names, stick them on a fridge if they defend Trump, and then you'll know when Trump turns out to be a snake, you'll know that those watchmen got it wrong. And they are getting it wrong once again. Here we go once again, folks. Right now is the perfect time to make a snapshot. Get a snapshot, ladies and gentlemen. You need to really do this. If you're listening to some of those people who name their shows after themselves, and there's a few of them, the watchmen out there, or those who claim to have news that is true, those guys out there, make note, because they already have exposed themselves as getting it wrong. They are pro-Russian, pro-Putin, pro-Trump, fifth column shills who are revealing the fraudulent nature of their discernment. It's on display right now. What time is it? Again, folks, it's the end times. And if we're in the end times, that means that we can expect the little horn to show up. Delusion in the end, betrayal, the Judas goat is going to do his thing. We can expect the little horn is going to be possessed by Satan. And I submit to you that the little horn at the moment is Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump is the little horn, Satan is inside of him, or very powerful principalities and spirits. That is why he always gets out of it, slipping through, because Satan has his hand on him. Donald Trump has influence over millions and millions of people. People who send him money, people who support him, people who have been given a false sense of hope. And Trump is using them. He's making merchandise out of them. Now, to define the term Scorpion King, when we go to the book of Revelation and we look in chapter 9, there's an event that has been prophesied that is going to happen when the bottomless pit opens up. This is 9 verse 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star falling from heaven to the earth. That's Satan falling. And to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke rose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. And then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. There it is, folks. So these creatures that come out are going to be like scorpions, and they're going to have the power to sting like scorpions. And they were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing, or any tree, but only those men who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. This means the people who are not truly saved. That's told to us in Ephesians chapter 1. When we get saved, God seals us with an earnest or a deposit that we are then adopted by him. So those who have not been adopted by God will be stung by the scorpion. It goes on, verse 5, and they were not given authority to kill them, the people that they stung, but to torment them for 5 months. And their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days they will seek death and not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. Those of you who are seasoned Christians, those of you who have been at this, you've read this a lot of times, I'm sure. But then it goes to verse 11, and it says, they had a king over them, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek his name is Apollyon. And in Proverbs 27:20, it says hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. And that word for destruction in the Hebrew is Abaddon, which means the destroyer, which is Satan. Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So Proverbs is telling us that hell and Satan, Abaddon, the destroyer, are never full. In other words, Satan is never satisfied with the count. He always wants more. He always wants more people. The Scorpion King is Satan. And right now, the powers of darkness, spiritual forces, demons, fallen angels, principalities, and yes, even Satan himself have occupied Donald Trump, because the way that Donald Trump behaves is exactly how Satan behaves. Donald Trump is never satisfied about having enough people. He's always talking about the crowds. Even when he's complaining about these investigations, he still brings up the crowds. When he talks about Ron DeSantis, he calls him Ron DeSanctimonious, who I had more votes for, by the way. He's never satisfied. And we read right here in Proverbs, Satan is never satisfied. He always wants more. And that's exactly how Trump behaves. So Satan is the Scorpion King. He's the king of the bottomless pit. And he's also the destroyer. He tried to destroy Jesus. And his mission right now is to destroy you, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the thing that I don't hear a lot of the other watchmen talking about. I don't hear those NAR preachers talking about it. And I don't even hear many evangelical pastors talking about how Satan wants to destroy God's people right now in these last days. And even more so, I have never heard any of the preachers talk about how is he doing it. If we're in the last days and all these things are going on, that means Satan is alive and well, and he's in the middle of his operation. So if we are there and Satan is on this mission, he has the key to the bottomless pit, which, by the way, Jesus holds the keys to everything. He holds the keys to hell and death, but he loans it to the devil temporarily. Why does Jesus do that? It is so that God's vindication can occur on the earth. So Satan is behind it, and his operation is trying its best not just to kill people, not just to destroy people, but to attack and confuse those who are not hidden in God. So, number one, we must be hidden in God. We must know the scriptures of the end times. We must be able to tap into the verses and the passages and the words of scripture about warfare, about overcoming, about the victory that we have through the power of the name of Jesus and the blood of Jesus. You see, folks, those are your weapons. That's what you have access to. But instead of people tapping into those weapons and using them for survival. Instead, they are grabbing a hold of the hem of his garment, Donald Trump's garment. And they love the way he speaks. They love the things that he says, which are words of poison. They are words of death and destruction, but they like it. So as we watch and witness the exhibition of this craziness, we have to conclude that there is a spiritual operation taking place, folks. There's no other way to put it, because those people have been hypnotized. They're deluded. They don't care about truth. They don't seem to care about facts. They only believe Trump and Truth Social and the things that he says. By the way, key point, ladies and gentlemen, Truth Social, used by approximately 2 million people, and Trump uses it even now. But Truth Social has been funded by a bank, a financial institution that funds all the porn sites of the world. And they have funded Truth Social along with Russian money. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I share my warnings and my messages with you, if I shared them as hearsay or gossip or just my opinion, it wouldn't really matter. There might be a few people who found it interesting, but it wouldn't matter because I'm just full of fluff. I would just be sharing things that were the words of man. But on this program and on this channel, we do not do that. We look into the Bible and we look at the authority of the scriptures. So I'm using the Bible right now to disclose that the Scorpion King, Satan, is using Donald Trump in a spiritual militant operation to cause as many people as he can to stumble. The Scorpion King is here now, folks. And when it comes to Satan, how much of his strategy involves deception and seduction? How much of Satan's strategy involves hypnotism of the soul and hijacking of thinking, or hallucinations of the spirit with false visitations and visions and dreams and words of prophecy? How much of the operation of Satan uses those devices? All of his operations do this. That's how he works. He's the accuser, the deceiver, and he loves to deceive God's people, and he loves to destroy them, and also he loves to place curses on people and use people as incubators for his evil so that they can reproduce and spread the same lies. Because in a way, ladies and gentlemen, when Satan spreads lies, he doesn't do it to just stop at one person. He creates it so that it can continue spreading like a weed. Now, if you have your Bible, please turn to the book of Isaiah, chapter 59, and I'm going to share some things about the Scorpion King and why Trump is behaving like a reptilian. Now, a few months ago, I shared a program about reptilians in the church, and we talked about how the devil uses spiritual, satanic devices of poison and deception. He uses them, and they are actual objects. They are like little eggs of deception. And Isaiah 59 tells us about this. It says that Satan does this. So please turn to Isaiah 59, and let's start at verse 4. And this is talking about those who are separated from God. It says, "No one calls for justice, nor does any plead for truth." Now this is what goes on in a Trump rally, because the things I'm about to read right here are what occur in the fleshly sense at a Trump rally and amongst the supporters of MAGA and QAnon. Verse 4, "No one calls for justice," so they don't want fairness, a just scale in other words, "nor does any plead for truth." So they don't want justice and fairness. They trust in empty words, and they speak lies. It's right here, folks. Isaiah 59:4. They trust in empty words and speak lies. That's what Trump does, and people trust in him. It goes on. They conceive evil and bring forth iniquity. And then verse 5, here it is. This is how Satan uses his deception and how demonic forces get involved in deception. Because see, folks, it's not just a matter of information that might be true or might not be true. When Donald Trump shares his lies, those lies are also accompanied by an entourage of spiritual forces. His lies are actually words of death, and there are spiritual forces going along with those lies that go out into the air and they land into the ears of listeners as eggs. What, Nathan? What are you talking about? Let's continue. Verse 5. They hatch vipers' eggs and weave the spider's web. So the people, Donald Trump again, with the Scorpion King inside him, giving out lies, hands them out, but then it says they hatch viper eggs, snake eggs. and they weave them like a spider's web. So now we have the silk of the spider, the stickiness of eggs stuck in it, and that mixture, that trap or cloak of lies, then goes out and it lands on people. A sticky spider web with satanic viper eggs. And what does it do when it lands? It says, he who eats of their eggs dies. And from that which is crushed, a viper breaks out. So their spiritual life goes away, the light of their lamp goes out, their oil drains. This is what happens internally in their spirit. And this, my friends, is the anatomy of delusion. This is how delusion happens. When Paul says, because they had no love for the truth, God would send a strong delusion, this is how it happens. The viper takes over. Satan is then allowed to vomit eggs floating in the air, eggs of lies, eggs of deception, viper eggs. And by the way, that word in verse 5, they hatch vipers' eggs. That's cockatrice eggs. That means demon, demonic, satanic, underworld, very, very evil demonic grenades from the bowels of hell coming to the surface of the earth and stinging the people and making them sick with spiritual death. And the people who eat them, they die. But then it says they also hatch something. Then they start repeating the cycle. And from that which is crushed, a viper breaks out. Evil continues. And it's a cycle of evil continuing. So these people hear the lies of Trump. The viper eggs go into their ears, into their soul. They chew on them and break them open. The cockatrice demons come out of the eggs, mixed with the sticky tarp cloak of darkness, the spider web, the trap, the snare that accompanies the eggs. And the people then spew out more eggs for destruction. Verse 6, their webs will not become garments, nor will they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, they make haste to shed innocent blood, and their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Now, as I've been speaking, you see the screen, folks? You see Donald Trump holding the baseball bat, threatening a Manhattan district attorney, and saying openly, protest, protest, take it back. And he's telling the people to get involved in mayhem. But this is the way Trump operates. Why is Trump doing this? I'm reading his resume right here. Their works are works of iniquity, verse 6, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their path. The way of peace they have not known, and there is no justice in their ways. They have made themselves crooked paths, and whoever takes that way shall not know peace. And that is the resume of Donald J. Trump, the reptilian man who has Satan's minions parked inside of him, masquerading as a politician, when in truth, he's the Scorpion King. And his role is to bring disarray and to bring chaos and to lie to God's people and make fools out of well-meaning folks who were just hoping for something better. Trump is taking advantage of them. And that's why I'm doing this program. How crazy is it that the things that I am warning you about are the exact opposite of what the other watchmen are telling you? Because all they are doing is complaining from the earthly level. They're telling you how evil the Democrats are. It's Hunter Biden's fault. They're not able to break out of the limited binary thinking that hamstrings logic. It capsizes rationale. It demotes common sense. And it puts a stake into reason and discernment. The viper eggs are in the words of Trump, ladies and gentlemen. They are in his tweets. They are his poison. And what you see right here is a viper egg. And surely no one will eat them, right, folks? Surely no one will? Well, on the contrary, many do eat it. Do you folks remember in 2015, or it might have even been earlier, when Trump was interviewed and they asked him if he's ever asked Jesus for forgiveness? If he's asked God for forgiveness. And he said there's no reason to, because he's never done anything wrong that needs apologizing or repenting of. He said, I don't need to do that. So at the very top, when it comes to admitting wrong, he can't even do it with God. Now, folks, that says a lot about this individual. That says a lot about this man. It says that he has no reference of right and wrong. He has no reference or boundaries or soulless attraction to good. It means he does not know good. He does not know and understand what justice is, what love is, what sacrifice is. He knows nothing about being a good person. Because if he could actually say on TV, in front of the cameras, there's no reason for me to ask God for forgiveness because I've never done anything wrong. Now, let's put that on the table and let's put a giant pin in it. And this is what the pin should say. What he does to God, he's going to do to you. Which is this. He's always right. He has no respect for anyone else besides himself. He will never admit wrong, which means that he's basically a machine of darkness and evil. He is a wrecking ball. It's true, he is. Some people try to give him that term as something noble, but no. He's a wrecking ball because wherever Trump goes, destruction happens. And we have seen the church become divided because of Donald Trump. And we saw the behavior of many Christians who chose how they were going to process the Donald Trump problem with their conscience. Because a lot of folks had to do that. They had to reconcile the problem of Trump, who is very unrighteous, who represents 0% of Christianity. So the people that are going with him are having to put that aside. There's a word for that, folks. It's called compromise. It's called cherry-picking righteousness. Or, according to the Bible, it's called hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy. Because Trump has proven himself emphatically. He has proven to everybody who he is. He has proven the true condition of his heart and the merits that are lacking in his heart, that don't exist, that should be there. He has proven it to all of us now after 6 years. We know what kind of man he is. But still, folks want to defend him. And there's a lot of Christians that want to defend him and who are defending him. Those MAGA people are defending him. When Jesus said, because lawlessness will take over the landscape, the love of many will go away and hatred will take over. Now, folks, isn't that exactly what has happened in the Trump universe? He is above the law, and the MAGA people will say so because they're mad that he's getting investigated. They are angry. How dare them indict this man who is very cruel and openly defies all goodness, but even still they will defend him. So what is wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture? How can people defend unrighteousness and claim it's one of the assignments of God? What does God have to say about this? What do you think? Those of you who are seasoned Christians, you know what God has to say about it. God is going to have the last word, and God is going to have them stand before him, and they're going to have to give an account, and they are going to be found wanting. It's not going to be good. In the book of Romans, chapter 1, it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men." Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the end times, and we cannot be playing around with this sort of thing. This is dangerous. This is playing with fire, because the people who are doing this, who are compromising their view of righteousness in the matters of Trump, the people who are doing that, they are playing with fire. And it's not going to go well for the children of disobedience. The book of Romans tells us this. Now, I know I have said a lot of things. It makes me sad how so many Christians are being taken advantage of by this man. The confusing landscape and the spiritual dryness in the air, the deceptive fog that is hovering over the earth. So that's why I do these programs. I do these programs because this is what time it is. This is the storm. I appreciate all of you who give me the opportunity of your precious time to hear what I have to say, because I do consider it a privilege. I want to use that privilege and make it count. That's my motivation. Anyway, thanks for listening to this program. I'm going to wrap it up. And in the next program that's coming, I'm going to bring another uplifting message about faith. So please be looking for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I need your help with this. We need to get this message out. We need for the church to know what's really going on. And on this channel, I present to you the inconvenient truth that the church will not touch. So I want to encourage all of you to share this with everyone that you know. If everyone would share this message, it would go viral. But for some reason, most people don't want to share it. And that's where it ends. But there's a good chance that there are many of you who have friends that are also sick of this mess with Trump. But they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They're tired of it. They're fatigued. And I'm fatigued as well. I'm tired of talking about this. Folks, this message is vital for this time, for this day. So if you appreciate what we're doing, we appreciate and we need your support. Our address is Watchman's Cry. There it is on the screen. P.O. Box 157, Priest River, Idaho 83856. Or you can go to our website, watchmanscry.com. There's a link in the description and also to our Venmo account. All right, folks, let's get this done together. And with the help of God, we will. I have a lot more to share with you guys. There's a lot more coming. This thing is fluid. We're going to be talking about it a lot, but we're also going to be talking about getting strong with God, building our faith, and in an upcoming program, we're going to talk about that. Faith, building our faith, building your faith, because you guys need to have stronger faith. There's a lot of you out there who want to be able to weather this thing with stronger faith, so we're going to talk about it in the next program. All right, my friends? So with that, stay vigilant, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.